Imagine being a heavyweight champion, a millionaire, a global icon, a man capable of knocking out almost anyone who stood in his way. But what if all the fame, fortune, and power in the world couldn't give you peace? And what if the greatest battle of your life wasn't fought in the ring, but within your own soul? This is the incredible true story of George Foreman. But before we get into that story, my name is Steve, and this is LTS. Before the fame, the championships, and before becoming one of boxing's greatest legends, George Foreman was an angry young man. Born in Marshall, Texas, and raised in Houston, George spent much of his youth getting into trouble. He would later on describe himself as a bully who fought often, stole, and constantly looked for trouble. By the age of 15, he had dropped out of high school and his future looked uncertain, but everything changed when he joined the Job Corps program. It was there that he discovered boxing. Almost immediately, coaches noticed something special. George wasn't just strong, he was powerful, gifted, dangerous, and within only a few years, he captured a gold medal at the 1968 Olympic Games. The world had found its next heavyweight star. His professional career exploded. One opponent after another fell before him. Then came 1973, the night that changed everything. George faced heavyweight champion Joe Frazier, and George dominated that fight. Foreman knocked Frazier down 6 times in just 2 rounds to become the heavyweight champion of the world. The legendary call echoed across television screens. Down goes Frazier. George had reached the top. He had money, he had fame, he had power, he had success, but deep down inside something was still missing. Then came one of the most famous fights in boxing history, the Rumble in the Jungle. George Foreman versus Muhammad Ali. Most experts predicted that Foreman would destroy Ali. Instead, the unthinkable happened. Foreman lost. And for the first time in his career, he experienced a crushing defeat on the biggest stage imaginable. And although he continued to box, something inside him began to change. A few years later, in 1977, George stepped into the ring against Jimmy Young. Round after round, Young outboxed him. When the final bell rang, the judges awarded Young a unanimous decision of victory. The loss hurt, but what happened afterwards would change George's life forever. You see, when he returned to his dressing room, he was exhausted and severely dehydrated. Then something terrifying began to happen. George would later on say that he believed that he was dying. Not figuratively, but literally. He felt death closing in around him. According to Foreman, he entered into a place of darkness, a terrifying separation from God, a place filled with fear and hopelessness. And in that desperate moment, he cried out, "Jesus Christ, come alive in me." Then everything changed. The darkness vanished. Fear gave way to peace. Despair was replaced with hope. Death gave way to life. And George became convinced that he had just had an encounter with Jesus Christ. And from that moment forward, he was no longer the same man. He immediately began telling anyone who would listen to him what happened. He told people that Jesus Christ was alive. Some thought that he had lost his mind. Others laughed at him. But George didn't care. He knew what he had just experienced. And soon afterwards, he made a decision that shocked the boxing world. At the height of his fame and earning power, George Foreman retired from boxing. People could not understand it. Why would a world champion walk away from everything? The answer was simple. George believed that he had found something far greater than championships. He had found faith. And for years he devoted his life to ministry. He became an ordained minister. He preached the gospel, helped young people, and served his community. The man once known for intimidation became known for compassion. But God wasn't finished writing his story. Years later, financial difficulties forced George to make another surprising decision. He returned to boxing. Most people thought it was impossible. He was older, slower, far past his prime. No one believed he could become a champion again. But George kept fighting. And in 1994, at age 45, he shocked the world once more. George became a heavyweight champion again, the oldest heavyweight champion in boxing history. It remains one of the greatest comebacks in sports history, but this time things were different. Years earlier, championships had defined him. Now they didn't. His identity was no longer found in titles or money or fame. His identity was found in Christ. And throughout countless interviews, George consistently pointed people back to his faith. He often spoke about the life-changing encounter he experienced in that dressing room. He believed God had given him a second chance, not just in boxing, but in life itself. If you enjoyed this video and like this channel, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And until next time, be blessed.